is Sports Network.
Hello and welcome everyone to the post NFL draft day one. What an exciting draft it was. A lot of action, a lot of surprise, kind of right from the get go after that Mendoza pick. So lots to break down and talk about tonight. I hope everyone loved the stream that went down with Dolph and the crew on the main channel, the special guests they had. I am Lawrence Foster joining you with the weekly wrap special, a post round one edition of such. Uh, Again, everyone who comes in here knows you guys have questions, thoughts. How do you think the first round went? Big surprises, winners, losers of the first round, players, teams, whatever you think. Put it in the chat. We talk about it here. But what an exciting draft! Lots of trades, especially at the end. I think that showed just like a lot of teams felt the value of the draft was on day two with as many teams that traded back in my notes. Just from 20 to the end, the Cowboys traded out of 20. The Bills traded 3 times. The Niners traded back. The Jets traded up to get a third pick. So just those last 12, 13 picks, lots of movement, which is what the NFL loves to see, and fans like to see that action. We start off, I think, with the biggest surprise, right? Has to be what went down with Ty Simpson going to the Rams. Ty Simpson was predicted maybe at the bottom of the first, a team trading back up to get him, and the Rams staying pat at what did they have 13. I don't think anybody had them going that high. Dolph in the pregame said he thought the Jets would take him as 16, but the Rams just a team that's in win now mode. Right? They were one game away from the Super Bowl and probably being a Super Bowl champion, and they take a pick that's for the future. It's Ty Simpson does nothing to help them. I mean, unless Stafford gets hurt and then he's thrust into the spotlight. But that barring that, Ty Simpson is a pick for at least a year down the road, if not two, as long as Stafford wants to stay there. So I think there was just a lot of surprise on the Rams being the team to pull the trigger on that, especially they were looking to add a wide receiver in the offseason in the free agency trade period. And you look at receivers still on the board. Lemon was on the board still. Messidor was on the board still. So there were still really good options there for the Rams, but they decided to take future quarterback, what they probably envisioned being the future of their franchise, and Ty Simpson. And for him, for the player, I think it's about as good of a spot as he could have hoped to go. He has no pressure on him. There's no pressure on the coach. There's no pressure on the organization at all to throw him out there. I would have to imagine it's the first time in NFL history where the reigning MVP of the league at quarterback, the stays with the same team. That team drafts the quarterback in the first round. I can't imagine that's happened before. I'm not going to search that up. I just can't imagine it happened. But I mean, that was the biggest surprise. But I think pick 3, like we talked about in the pregame show, pre-draft show, the Jets were going to take either Bailey or Reese. They ended up staying put at 2 and taking Bailey. Mendoza went 1. Everybody knew that. The Cardinals is where the real intrigue started. Were they going to stick there? Were they going to take something to help the defense? But they ended up taking what a lot of people think is the best overall player in the draft. They took Love from the running back from Notre Dame. And I think that kind of started a domino effect of kind of a little bit of surprising picks for the next few. But the Cardinals, who don't have a quarterback of the future right now, it looks like Jacoby Brissett, and he's holding out of the team activities, the voluntary, of course, he doesn't have to be there. But him knowing he's a starter now, he wants a better contract. I mean, the Cardinals can always get a quarterback day 2, but they go with Love. That probably the most dynamic weapon in this draft. And Then the Titans, who a lot of people, myself included, thought they would take Love if he was there, they go Carnell Tate. And considering that Reese was still available from the Ohio State edge, I was kind of surprised that they went wide receiver. I thought for Titans it was either Love or defense with Saleh as the coach. But the Titans get Cam Ward, a legitimate wide receiver, probably the highest floor out of any of the receivers in the draft. But again, to me at least, kind of surprising. And from all the mocks I saw, I think surprised a lot of people that they go wide receiver. Reese went to the Giants, which I was surprised at because of who they already have. And then Schefter tweeted out during the draft that they have no intention of trading Kayvon Thibodeaux. So the Giants have just a mass unit of edge rushers. They drafted Abdul Carter last year. They have Thibodeaux still, Brian Burns, and now they added Arvell Reese to the mix. So if they can get creative and have all four on, like, that's quite the stream of defensive linemen and edge rushers coming at you if they can find a way to creatively get all four of them on the field at the same time in like obvious passing situations. That's pretty interesting. Now, whether they stick to the we're not trading anybody thing remains to be seen, but at least at the moment they're keeping all four of those pass rushers. Then at number 6 was the first of many trades. Kansas City moving up from 9 to 6 with the Browns, and the Chiefs, who had both of their corners, went to the Rams, one via trade, one via free agency. They took the best corner in the draft in Delane, the corner out of LSU. They knew what they needed. They traded up. They didn't have to give up their other first-round pick. They gave up a third and a fifth to move from 9 to 6. So they got their corner, and then we'll talk about it later. They also got one of the best defensive tackles in the draft. So a solid night for Kansas City, being able to move up and get the best corner and still keep that other first. The Commanders then took Sonny Styles. It was funny. I saw a story on X that he had said, Sonny Styles had said earlier in the day he was going to go to the Commanders, and it seemed like his family and friends kind of didn't believe that. So he kind of spoke it into existence. Then again, the Saints at 8, they took Jordan Tyson. Everyone was connecting to receiver, but I know like Dolph included, like Caleb Downs is there, and I thought for sure, like with his fall going there, he was connected a lot during this pre-draft process of falling. If he fell to the Saints, that they would take him. But the Saints, I guess, wanted to continue to support Tyler Shuck. Chris Olave is obviously the number 1 there. And now they have Jordan Tyson, who, if he can stay healthy, because the only question about him is his health and durability, because over the course of his time at ASU, that's been pretty much the only thing to hold him back. And that little nugget, if you were listening to the ESPN broadcast, when Tyson got picked, the ASU coach, I think Willingham is his name, had told the ESPN guys that he had to kind of protect Tyson from himself because he would be hurt or kind of dinged up, and he would just keep going full bore, and he kind of had to pull him back to let himself heal. So on one hand, that's great. Like, you got somebody who's going to fight through injuries, going to be out there for his team. On the other hand, sometimes you got to know when to pull back and let yourself heal so you can be 100% when you need. That brings us to the Browns, who traded back from 6, picked up a third and a fifth, and they still got the guy they probably would have gotten anyway. They got the first offensive lineman off the board, in Spencer Fano, probably the best offensive lineman in the draft. So they were able to pick up 2 picks to get the guy they would have got anyway. And then to close out the top 10, the Giants took the next offensive lineman, Francis Maioga, I think that's how you say it. I'll do my best on that. And you got to love how his interview, right? Like, the interview he asked, and he's like, man, I'm going to die for my quarter. Like, if an offensive lineman is saying he's going to die and sacrifice himself for his quarterback, he's got the right mindset of knowing, like, I'm going to do what I have to do to protect them. So I'm sure Giants fans, the Harbaugh, and very happy with that pick. The Dolphins traded to Dallas to just one pick down. They ended up getting 177 and 180 for just falling one spot back. I know I have a few friends who are Dolphins fans who are upset that they didn't take Caleb Downs, but the Cowboys moved up to one spot to get Caleb Downs, and that makes sense positionally. Through a lot of the mock drafts and the process leading up, Thieneman was the safety that was connected there, mainly because Downs was always gone before Cowboys picked. So the fact that they were able to just move up one spot, not give up a ton to do so, but the guarantee they get him, that's a pretty shrewd move by Dallas. And I saw a post of someone's like, Dallas drafts so well, but then they play like, but yeah, the last few years, Dallas is intelligent in how they draft. They do things smartly and take the right guys. So after the move down, Miami ended up taking Caden Proctor, the big tackle out of Alabama. I thought Mel Kiper's kind of analysis of the pick while it was going on, just talking about just like how he was underachieving. And I imagine as a Dolphins fan, that was kind of probably like off-putting of like, oh man, we just drafted this guy and Kiper's already saying, well, if he chooses to do it, if he brings it, like I would hope being a first-round pick in the NFL, like you don't have to motivate anybody or worry about their ability to bring their A game most days. But Caden Proctor was the pick from Miami, the third offensive lineman, a big run there. You kind of figured heading into the draft, once that first offensive lineman domino fell, that there'd be a mass kind of like push towards them. And then proved to be like 3 out of 4 picks for offensive linemen there. And then we already talked about, we led the show with Simpson going 13 to the Rams, was the real big shocker of the first round. Not necessarily that Ty Simpson got drafted in the first, but that the Rams took him and they stayed at 13 to pick him. If they had like somehow moved up into the bottom of the first, okay. But just straight up taking him with their pick at 13. By the sounds of it, they kind of viewed that as a bonus. Like, hey, we traded for this pick last year when the Falcons took Pierce. It's kind of like house money. And they seemed like they treated it as such, of like, when's the next time we're ever going to be in a position to draft a quarterback this high without having to give up a bunch? So long term, it makes sense. I get the Rams fans who are like, what does that do for us this year to get us over that Seattle hump? But I think what they did in the free agency and trade, getting the corners and everything, I think they'll be all right. After that, the Ravens were on the clock. They took the guard out of Penn State, the top-rated guard. A lot of people had connected them to Sadiq, myself included, but guard, they're getting that offensive line, so things seems like they're going to continue to lean into Derrick Henry in the running game. I was surprised they didn't get another weapon or anything for Lamar Jackson, but solidifying the offensive line, can't go wrong there, and that's kind of Baltimore is known for that, right? The trenches on both sides of the ball. They continue to make that a strong point. Bringing to the Bucks, they took Bain, the defensive end out of Miami. You heard, if you watched any of this, whatever service you watch, ESPN, ABC, or NFL Network. I watched ESPN. I imagine no matter which one you watch, they talked about his arms. Who cares? Like, watch what he did last year. The man was productive. He did what he needed to do, and I think that's going to provide him a little chip. And the Buccaneers needed a pass rusher. So at that point, getting Bain at 15 without moving up, I think that's heck of a pick for the Bucks. Todd Bowles can do wonders with him, and it really helps a defense that really lacked a pass rush last year. And speaking of Sadiq, that brings us to halfway through the draft with 16. The Jets, with their second of what ended up being 3 first-round picks, took Sadiq, the top tight end out of Oregon. A buddy of mine texted when they were showing the highlight reel saying, lots of blocking there, but I'm sure the Jets can kind of bulk him up and get him block ready. That's not what they drafted for him. That's not why somebody was going to take him in the first round. Sadiq offers them a vertical seam threat. And what have we heard for 20, 30 years? Tight ends are a young quarterback's best friend, and they went and got him the top one in the draft without having to move up or do any maneuvering for him. So I think that's a smart move for whoever ends up playing quarterback for the Jets. Geno at the moment, but who knows what they'll do in day 2. Bring us to the Lions. Worst kept secret. They were going to go offensive lineman. They ended up choosing Blake Miller, the offensive tackle out of Clemson. I kind of was surprised it wasn't Freeling, because Freeling had been one of the top linemen throughout the entire pre-draft process. But that was the 4th offensive lineman taken, and it was not, 5th offensive lineman was taken. It was not Freeling, but everyone knew the Lions were going to go there. And then I think that pretty much indicates to everybody that Sewell is going to be switched to left tackle. He all-pro right tackle, but now he has a skill set, and he's obviously seasoned enough, should be able to pull that off. But Miller, the tackle to the Lions, and I think they're smart in going back to like when they were successful outside of last year, it was because of their offensive line. And they're kind of leaning back into that, which makes a lot of sense. That brings us to 18 in the Vikings. They took Caleb Banks, which I think was another surprise. They have been connected to seen him in a lot through the draft. He was sitting there, and Caleb Banks being the first defensive tackle taken out of the draft was surprising to me. Of that, he had 2 foot injuries in the past year, and that seems like that is an issue that can linger, especially with somebody of A, his size, and B, that plays his position. Like, think about all that happens in the trenches. But they took a swing. If Banks can stay healthy, I think he is the top defensive tackle in the draft. So the Vikings must have been at the point like, hey, he's this much higher than everyone else. The risk is worth it. Otherwise, I mean, they could have taken Woods, who's everyone is an injury risk, I guess, in a way in the NFL, but without pre-existing stuff. Takes us to 19, and that's where Freeling ended up going to the Panthers. A great pickup for the Panthers. Needed offensive line help. If Sadiq had fallen there, I wonder if they would have taken him to help get another weapon for Bryce Young. But Freeling solidifying that offensive line even more. Can't go wrong there. Great pick for the Panthers. Cowboys were at 20, but they ended up trading back with the Eagles of all teams. They traded from 20 to 23. The Eagles ended up getting Mekhi Lemon, one of my favorite receivers in the draft. I think that all but seals. I mean, it was already written pretty much in stone, but now I think it's etched in stone that A.J. Brown is a goner on June 1st, and everything, all signs point to him being a Patriot. To make that trade, the Eagles gave up 114 and 137, and then the 23rd pick, and Dallas got the 20th. I'm sorry, Philly got the 23rd, 21st, and the 7th round pick. That brings us to the Steelers. Pretty cool what they did when the Steelers picked. But they took Max, the offensive tackle at ASU. Guy who's only been playing football a few years, so his upside is woo. And especially with the news about Broderick Jones having a setback with his neck issues, I think a good pickup for the Steelers. And again, kind of like the Lions, one of the worst kept secrets of the draft was that the Steelers were going to take some sort of big ugly, either on the defense or offensive line. They go offensive line with somebody whose upside is right up there, and he's still learning. Like, he's still green, but he's has enough potential and enough on film to warrant that first round pick. Takes us to pick 22 and the Chargers. They took Messidor, the 25-year-old defensive end. I think the only really red flag of him was his age, but the Chargers, who lack really any sort of pass rush outside of Mack, who's getting up there in age, good pick for the Chargers. The Cowboys, who we just mentioned, traded from 20 down to 23 with the Eagles. They take Malachi Lawrence, the UCF defensive end. So from their 2 picks, the Cowboys get Lawrence and Caleb Downs. Pretty good pickups there for a defense that was historically bad last year. So 2 nice building blocks for the Cowboys to start moving forward on that side of the ball. The Browns knocked it out of the park, I think, with their with the 24th pick, getting Casey Concepcion. Drops being his only issue, but aside from that, pretty much good at all levels. So the Browns end up getting extra picks. They got Spencer Fano and Casey Concepcion. That's a heck of a day one first round for the Browns in their new regime. And then obviously they got a lot of ammo to do stuff the rest of the time as well. The Bears took Thieneman, the other top safety in the draft. I don't think anybody had Thieneman dropping that low, so that's a good pickup for the Bears, who had their breakout year with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. So the Bills were at 26. They traded down, one of 3 trades for my Bills. They gave picks 28. I'm sorry, they gave it 26 and 91 to get 28, 69, and 167 to Houston. Houston moved up to take Rutledge. I think that's a really smart move for Houston. Their issues the last few years have been offensive line. Like, I mean, their wide receivers get injured. Can't help that. But C.J. Stroud, and part of the reason he has struggled so much is his offensive line has been so bad. So they saw probably the last tackle they had like a high grade on, moved up and got him. So, I mean, good move for them. Then the Niners on the clock. They traded back to number 30 with Miami. Miami moved up to take the second corner of the draft, Chris Johnson. I thought it was kind of surprising that there was only 2 corners taken in the first round. So I think that just bellies the fact that a lot of the value for this draft is in tomorrow, days rounds 2 and 3, 4 and 5 as well. That put the Bills back on the clock, but they traded back again, this time to New England. New England moved up from 30, and they ended up giving up a couple picks for that. And they also took an offensive lineman, so that's a run of offensive linemen we talked about earlier. They took Caleb Lemieux. The Bills got 31 in the first round, then pick 125 as well for that. The Chiefs made their second first-round selection in they took the defensive tackle Woods out of Clemson. So they worked on their defense with both of their picks. I think, as much as it pains me to say, pretty solid day for the Chiefs overall. Getting the best corner and then arguably the top defensive tackle in the draft. The Niners were at 30 after the trade of Miami, but they also traded back once again to the Jets this time. The Jets leapfrogged in front of Buffalo to get Omar Cooper Jr., the wide receiver out of Indiana. So the Jets, I think, were the overall winners of day one. They got 2 legit weapons and then arguably the best pass rusher in the draft. So they got Sadiq, the best tight end, no argument there. Amar Cooper, one of the best wide receivers. And then Bailey, the edge. That leads us to Buffalo again, but they traded back one more time to the Titans this time for Keldrick Falk. So the Titans ended up with 2 first-round picks. They took Keldrick Falk and then Carnell Tate. So they get a pass rusher and they get the top. They got the top choice of their wide receivers. And then Seattle, I think that's something intelligent. They needed. They lost their Kenneth Walker, the Super Bowl MVP. Charbonnet's coming off an injury from the playoffs. So they took a Kadarian Price, the running back out of Notre Dame. First time in draft history, the first 2 running backs taken were from the same school. So good on them that happened. So like I said, it was an exciting first night of the draft. Nan, welcome in. It was definitely an interesting draft. Lots and tons of trades. I'm very glad I ended up taking notes. So like as I was going, like I'm old school. I didn't put it on my computer. I had my notebook. Taking notes, put some stars next to things that I mentioned, but still a lot of talent left heading into day 2, and we knew that was going to happen. Jermod McCoy, still, because only 2 corners were taken. Got Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, a safety out of Toledo. Denzel Boston, wide receiver from Washington. Caden McDonald, who almost everybody had going in the first round, and he was in the green room. So he was taken. Zion Young, the edge from Missouri, still there. Cassius Howell, a lot of people predicted him. Colton Hood was also in the green room, the corner out of Tennessee. So there's a lot of talent still there at the top of the second round. So I imagine between now and the start of tomorrow's draft, there's going to be a lot of movement at the top of teams trying to jostle in front of anybody who wants to get these players that fell. So with all the trades, I'll quickly review. The Titans no longer have the Jets no longer have the top pick in the round 2. The Niners will be are on the clock. Just kick off night 2 and round 2. Then we have the Cardinals. The Bills will be on the clock at 35, followed by the Raiders, Giants, and Texans. They'll be the first few picks of the second round. But we want to thank everybody for joining us at the Come On In Sports Network throughout the last, we started the pre-show at 6:30. So roughly the last 5 hours for those of you who joined us throughout this entire thing. We'll be back tomorrow, an hour before the draft. I'll be doing another pre-show to lead up to day 2. And then obviously all the fellas will be back again tomorrow for rounds 2 and 3. But make sure you just stay tuned to Come On In Sports Network. I am Lawrence Foster with the weekly wrap special NFL draft round post 1 show. Thanks for tuning in, guys. And as we always say, the door is open. So come on in.
Come On In Sports Network.